Turbulence in the relationship between Canada and the US continues to drive down travel to the US comes for vacation. I think there's other places I would rather go. When international travel to the US fell last year, many blamed the so-called Trump slump, arguing that the president's low approval ratings overseas are to blame for the drop in tourism. The crowds are thinning, the terminals growing quieter, and the numbers are painting a grim picture. Nearly 40% fewer Canadian tourists crossed into the US last month alone. Over 3 million international travelers have disappeared in just a matter of weeks, stripping the country of more than $21 billion in potential revenue. Where passport control once buzzed with energy, there's an eerie stillness. From Las Vegas to New York, the ripple is unmistakable. Hotels, airports, and businesses that once thrived on foreign foot traffic are now bracing for impact. And it didn't start overseas. It started with a decision made in Washington. A string of policies from trade moves to visa shakeups sent shockwaves through an industry that once seemed untouchable. So, what turned the world's top destination into a place tourists are now skipping over? And what happens when they don't come back? Stick around until the end. The collapse came quietly, but its impact has been anything but subtle. Flights between Canada and the United States, once the busiest cross-border routes in North America, have been hollowed out. By late March of 2025, bookings on these routes had plunged by 70% compared to the year before. Airlines, faced with rows of unsold seats, stripped more than 320,000 seats from their schedules through October. Then came the government's advisories. On April 4th, Canada's Foreign Ministry issued a formal warning, urging citizens to think twice before heading south. Concerns about harsh screenings and shifting rules at the border took over the headlines. Within days, the message was everywhere, from morning news shows to viral TikToks. And just a week later, Washington issued a new requirement for Canadians staying more than 30 days. Visitors now had to register with authorities and provide fingerprints. For millions of casual tourists, it felt like being treated as suspects. The backlash was swift. As trust fractured, travel agencies across Canada saw a flood of cancellations. But travelers weren't staying home. They were choosing new destinations, places that didn't feel like crossing a line. Mexico, the Caribbean, and Europe surged in popularity, with some operators reporting a 30% jump in demand. Canadians were moving on and, well, they were taking their wallets with them. That shift was clearly reflected in new data. Statistics Canada recorded a sharp drop in returning air passengers in April and May, down 14% and 24.2% respectively. It wasn't about a single decision. Nope, this was the result of mounting frustrations, rising tariffs, tighter visa rules, and honestly, stories of detentions making headlines back home. Border reported sales dropping by up to half between January and April. In total, more than 20 million Canadians, who once made up a quarter of all international visitors to the US, have been pulling back. Now, terminals once brimming with movement are growing quieter by the day. The optimism that marked early travel recovery has faded, replacing it with empty seats and a creeping sense that something larger is unraveling. But Canada is only one piece of the puzzle. Across the Atlantic, another shift is underway, and honestly, it's hitting even harder. By the end of May, flights arriving from Europe had dropped sharply, down 17% from the previous year. Flights that once had waiting lists and full cabins were now taking off half-empty. The decline wasn't gradual, it was sudden, and it rattled the industry. Bloomberg reported that bookings for July transatlantic flights were down another 13%. Airlines were being forced to lower fares to levels not seen since the height of the pandemic. Some Paris to New York tickets were being sold at prices that hadn't been seen since 2020. But it wasn't about affordability. Travelers were hesitating for deeper reasons. European news outlets ran frequent stories about Americans tightening immigration rules. Reports of aggressive screenings, surprise interrogations, and long hours at immigration checkpoints dominated headlines. Travelers shared their stories online, some frustrated, some shaken. As the stories spread, so did the fear. Hotels that once banked on steady summer crowds were now scrambling to fill rooms. Manhattan, Miami Beach, Los Angeles, they all felt the pressure. Some hotels dropped rates by 40%, but even then, vacancies piled up. Restaurants, tour companies, cab drivers, every part of the tourism web took a hit. In many cities, foreign tourists are the ones who spend big. Their absence cuts deep. City budgets that rely on tourism revenue are facing shortfalls. Broadway shows, amusement parks, and museums that depend on European spending are seeing fewer crowds and thinner margins. Local leaders warned that if the pattern continues, layoffs in hospitality and entertainment sectors could be unavoidable. And this shift isn't a temporary glitch. It's becoming a new normal. Across Europe, travelers are now choosing destinations where the welcome is clearer and the entry process feels more predictable. With every flight not booked, with every dollar spent elsewhere, American cities lose more than just business. They lose influence, reputation, and honestly, global visibility. And there's really no sign yet that the trend is reversing. America's empty airports, well, they signal deeper trouble. This travel pullback isn't just isolated to a few cities, it's visible across the entire country. From coast to coast, major airports are seeing a steep drop in international foot traffic. TSA checkpoint data, which had shown steady growth since 2021, took a sharp downward turn in the spring of 2025. For the first time in years, total screenings over a 3-month span fell below the numbers from the year before. The dip isn't seasonal. The drop aligns almost perfectly with the April 11th policy requiring visitors staying over 30 days to register and provide fingerprints. It was rolled out shortly after Canada issued its advisory further complicating travel plans. What followed was honestly a chain reaction. Western European flight bookings collapsed. Canadian cancellations surged. Airports that had just begun to recover found themselves falling behind again. By summer, transatlantic flight prices were slashed in half. Not to attract bargain seekers, but really just to fill planes that were leaving half empty. Vegas feels the hit as tourist traffic dries up. In Las Vegas, the fallout has turned visible. In May 2025, visitor numbers dropped by 6.5%, marking the 5th straight month of decline. The Strip tells the story. Casino floors show empty seats, restaurants are quieter, hotel prices, once sky-high, have been cut in hopes of drawing crowds back. But even with discounts, many visitors are staying away. A recent report labeled Las Vegas prices as outrageously high, citing rising resort fees and, those inflated menu costs as key deterrents. For years, demand allowed Vegas to set steep rates. That leverage is now fading. What remains is a city trying to hold its ground while international traffic, slips away. The broader issue goes deeper than cost. The political environment is turning travelers off. Washington's trade decisions, new visa procedures and security measures have created, honestly, a lot of uncertainty overseas. That uncertainty echoes loudly in a city like Vegas, where tourism isn't a side business. It's the backbone. New York's alarming forecast sparks tourism alarm. Now, attention turns to New York. In May, NYC Tourism and Conventions revised its 2025 forecast downward, removing 3.5 million expected visitors from its earlier estimate. That change means the city is preparing to lose over $4 billion in direct spending. Leaders didn't mince words. This isn't a temporary slowdown, it's a crisis. Shops on Fifth Avenue or Broadway theaters and luxury hotels are all bracing for the fallout. International travelers who typically spend more per visit than domestic ones are now missing from the equation. With fewer bookings and shrinking margins, the city's hospitality sector faces mounting pressure. The roots of this decline stretch back to Washington. Tariffs targeting Canadian and European goods led to retaliation, economic and symbolic. Boycotts, travel campaigns urging citizens to avoid the United States. And, highly publicized immigration mishaps all contributed to the downturn. The welcome sign is still up, but fewer are arriving to see it. 3 million tourists have disappeared. Billions in spending have dried up. Vegas has dimmed. New York is bracing. America's once powerful tourism engine is losing altitude fast, weighed down by rising tensions, policy missteps, and growing distrust. If leaders don't move quickly to restore confidence, ease border concerns, and bring costs back in check, the country's reputation as a top destination could, really crumble. More travelers may start favoring the maple leaf or the golden stars of Europe over the stars and stripes. But, there's still time to change course by eliminating hidden fees, improving the travel experience, and rebuilding what's been lost. So the real question now is, would you still plan your next vacation in the US? Share your thoughts in the comments and, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.